illuminate the extraordinary potential within all of us. I'm your host, Thomas Carrier, a resilience coach, an ultra marathoner, and a firm believer in your next most powerful chapter. This podcast is a companion to my upcoming book, Resilience+Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash the Marathon of Your Life Mindset. It's scheduled to come out Feb March. Here we amplify stories of hope, perseverance, and success to inspire your journey. Today, I'm very excited, honored to have an exceptional guest, Jennifer Barroll, or as she would like to be known, the stage name, Jenny B. She has been on the stage in front of the audience with a microphone in her hand, as she says, right from the age of 13. Her ability to connect with the audience and usher them through events, specifically with a purpose, voice, and humor, is absolutely amazing. She's entertaining, she's inspiring, she's empowering, she's engaging. Wow. Anyway, let me not go talk on and on. I could go for a long time, but let's invite Jennifer or Jenny B. Welcome to Resilience+Rise podcast. Hello.
Thank you for having me. So honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Or Jenny B. Jenny.
Or you
I
could call
could.
me Jennifer. Jennifer's just fine. Jenny, Jennifer, Jen, all of them.
My Let's directly jump into it. So you have been in the spotlight, limelight, a coach, an author, international keynote speaker. From where you were and where you are now, how has the journey been? All right, has been just walk across the garden path, and here I am, the world. Now you're lucky to have me.
Right? Don't we wish that that was the way? I mean, I think we wish that, but then we wouldn't have all the lessons that we learned
True.
in the bumpy parts of the road of the journey. I mean, for me, I really do love the hero's journey. I love that story, around the idea of having a dream and having a vision or an idea, and then having to navigate the reality of executing on that idea and all of the ups and downs and ins and outs that were unexpected, that may seem like they're going to break you at some point. When you navigate through them and when you learn from them and you grow from them, and you finally get maybe to some place that some past version of you thought was quote unquote there, you
Mhm.
realize that number one, you're going to go to many mountaintops. There is no there. And number two, that you have a strength and a resilience that will get you through almost anything. And I think that that is actually one of the number one lessons to learn in this great, big, beautiful life that we've been given to live. It is to know our own strength, right? It is to know our own ability to rise and learn and grow and become. Like, that is so beautifully human. And oftentimes people, I think, they curse the challenges and the struggles. They shake their hands at the sky and they say, why me? Why is this all happening to me? And I live from a real perspective now. And I think I got this at a young age through my parents and what they taught me, but really to learn to not resist what is happening and to find a way. I love what Tony Robbins says about seeing things as if they were happening for you as opposed to happening to you.
That's what a beautiful start. That just gets me to the most one of the stories that I hold very closely to myself is when the master gave his servants one talent, three talents, and five talents. And he said, do what you can do with the talents. After a couple of months, he comes back. Guy with five talents increases it, three talents increases it, and one talent holds it because that's the talent which is given to him. How can I spend it? And here we are. That's what life, as you mentioned, is that give away or strengthen us so that we can be of a better service to another person. And this is another element that I've found about you, Jenny, is that when you are talking and when you are, guys, I will be putting out Jenny's links and areas. Please connect with her. She's an amazing person. But what I always believe is that we all are like angels with one wing. And when we hold somebody else, it becomes two wings to soar higher. And but when we talk about the challenges that you faced, how easy, difficult, or what were the holes that was poked onto your ship of working through what you believed was your calling? That is, as a coach, as a writer, as a going and being a comedian.
Yeah.
Tell
You
me
know,
some of the stories.
I love the opportunity, and thank you again for having me to tell a bit of my story. Going back into my young years, I did have a sense that there was a calling, if you will, on my life. I had the sense that there was a purpose at a very young age. I did not understand it to its full capacity, but that is one thing for me, and I know some people really do struggle with this question of why am I here? What is my purpose? For me, that is not a struggle that I had. I had a real keen sense of meaning to my life at a very young age. And through the things that happened in my young years, my parents divorced and both remarried. My father moved across the country to Alberta, where I live now, and we were on the East Coast, so it was far away. And my mom remarried, and they had a child, so I had another sibling. My stepdad had a child from a previous marriage, so I had a stepbrother. And it was interesting, my mom and my stepdad were really involved in the church. They were actually became pastors and
Hmm.
started their own church. And I don't talk about this very much, but growing up with one foot in that world for most of the year, and then I would come across the country and spend a few weeks or a summer with my father on the other side of the country. There was a very different world. I feel like in those moments I felt very torn. I felt very um confused, if you will. I didn't know what was right or wrong, if somebody was right for believing this or wrong for not believing it, or
Hmm.
and it really caused me to think about things at a young age again, where I don't think a lot of young people are considering on a deeper level what they really believe in. They just kind of follow what's been modeled for them. And so in those earlier years, I think I really resisted that. I didn't like it.
Hmm.
I wanted it to be easier. I wanted there to be just a clear picture. I didn't want to be traveling back and forth. I didn't want my dad to live over here, my mom to live over here, and all of the confusing things that went on with that. And then as I grew up, I started to pretend to be one person in one environment and another person in another environment. I learned to create a version of myself, a whole person that wasn't really me, because I thought that's what they wanted, right? I thought my mom and my stepdad wanted this version of me, and my dad and my stepmom wanted this version of me, and so I became a chameleon.
Hmm.
And that was all fine and good as a young person, but then you start getting into your teenage years and you start trying to really figure out who you are, and I had no idea. and I was trying to create friend groups and you know, have meaningful relationships, and I didn't know who I was. I was a people pleaser. I was just whatever you wanted me to be, which is a dangerous thing to be as a
Was
teenager.
it? I thought it was very interesting. People pleaser is one of the most exciting attributes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it was a confusing time for me. But when I started to really take a look at life and stop being afraid of who thought what about me and who wanted, you know, what from me and what expectations people had from me, I ended up traveling. I actually went to the other side of the world all by myself, and I traveled and I met lots of different people from all different walks of life. I was 18 years old. I had $1,000 in my bank account, and I feel like that time taught me who I was. And what I've known since then, for sure, I didn't know this before that moment, but what I learned in that time away was how resilient I am and how strong I am and how capable I am to figure things out, to rise to the occasion, to do hard things, to go through difficulties. I really learned that about myself. And that is one of those things that nobody can ever take away from me. Coming back, I began a career, and I was in more kind of marketing and communications. And I had some rough times, specifically around how I was being treated at certain places that I worked. And I really went through some difficulties where it was like a toxic work environment.
Hmm.
And although those places were so difficult to work, I had that resilience and I had that ability to, again, rise to the occasion and do the hard things. And I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot of about other people and how they react when things aren't going well and how they respond. And I really took note inside those environments where it wasn't very healthy around, oh, this is not a good way to behave. This is
Okay.
not going to get you the results that you want. And people would, you know, were quitting. Good, smart, talented people were leaving these jobs, these companies. And I was watching this, and companies were failing. I was like, wow, you know, you've got millions and millions of dollars. And because you're not investing in your people, because there isn't a culture of kindness here, people are leaving, and then the company implodes. You know, it's a longer story than that, but that's the Coles notes.
Hmm.
And all through the while, I'm sitting there and I have this sense of purpose in my life. And then I get the opportunity to be a leader myself. Early in
Okay.
my career, I get the opportunity to lead other people and shape their experience at work. And that's where I started to see all of these lessons that I had learned through the ups and the downs throughout my entire life came to fruition. And I was able to really instill in people a sense of confidence and belonging and values driven behavior and good communication. And as my career evolved, I found myself teaching other leaders how to do this. And now I get to travel the world, and I'm, you know, writing books and doing the things. But really all of the lessons, they come from all of the hard times, don't they?
Of course. That's absolutely the building blocks. And what you just mentioned, in fact, I just had a good fortune to talking to a law enforcement officer, and he works for upliftment of the challenged youth. And he says that particular age of the teenage or just before reaching that age, it's such a vulnerable age, and specifically when you come not exactly, but from broken homes or parents that have been chemically with a chemical substance addiction or something like that. It's so difficult for the child to find a sense of bearing, a sense of understanding. And also on the other side, I have had again talks about where people have been pushed to a point. I mean, 4 times cancer. She doesn't call a friend of mine. She doesn't call herself as a survivor. She calls herself as a thriver.
Wow.
That how life has happening for her, so that she has learned and become more stronger, more resilient, and more reaching to that particular area.
Yeah.
Also, I've had again fortune about guests who have come and spoken about their way that their souls had been broken, or physically, mentally, spiritually, how it has been broken. There have been people who have come in and who were horrifically assaulted, only to come back and shine. What, you know what, this is what life has happened, not to me but for me, so what can I become? And what I just heard from you, Jenny, is that you are also an epitome of that particular growth. I know you're on quite a bit of a journey at this point of time, wherein you're inspiring, you're motivating, you're providing the actions, you're writing books, etc. Can you tell me what exactly are, not exactly, but in a broad stroke, what are the plans that you have been having? Of course, now as an author, you would be going for a lot of events, signing events, etc. But what is your plans, your envisions, your goals for the greater good?
Yeah, great question. I feel for me, as I was saying before, within that idea of a sense of my own, reason for being here, why I'm on the planet.
Beautiful.
I feel like I'm here to help people grow, like to help people see things from another perspective so that they can respond from a different place with a new behavior that eventually helps them support other people. To me, there's a real ripple effect to growth and positivity and optimism and service and support. When we get out of our own head and we get out of the things that we worry about and are afraid of. And, Brene Brown talks about this a lot in her books about the story we make up in our minds.
Hmm.
And I feel like when people grow, they evolve past the story that they make up in their mind. And typically, the story that we make up in our mind is packed full of all of the terrible things that happened to us at some point in the past.
So true.
And we relive them and we recreate them when we don't realize our moment, when we don't realize that our power is in the present moment and our ability to create a future. We repeat the past. And to me, when somebody has evolved past that happening automatically, happening unconsciously, when we evolve past that, we really start to live our lives from a place of freedom. And I feel like I'm here on the earth to help people, to help in some way, shape, or form, say something or write something that people get that from, whether that be commercial or professional or in their relationships or in their own ability to be with themselves, their own sense of self. That is the one thing that I think covers all of it. It is that idea of our own ability to grow. And I'll share with you one of my favorite quotes, and I bet you know this one, from Viktor Frankl. He says, oh, now I'm forgetting it.
No,
Too much
yeah.
pressure. Hold on, give me 1 second.
It's not about
There,
what
I got it.
happened.
I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So, in between the things that are happening to us in our lives, right? To us, between the stimulation, between the thing and how we react or how we respond to it. There's a space. And we get to choose how we respond to it. We get to make a choice to say, is this going to be something that takes me out? Is this going to be something that defines me? Is this going to be something that ruins me or destroys me? Or am I going to be angry at it? Am I going to accept it? Am I going to receive it? Am I going to learn from it? What am I going to do with this thing that happened? We get to choose that. Stephen Covey talked about this a lot in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of our greatest human freedoms, he says, is our ability to choose how we respond to what is happening in our lives. And to me, what I love about that quote is at the end, he says, therein lies our growth and our freedom. And I think if we can be free from the limits of our past, regardless of the things that happened, because he wrote that from Auschwitz,
Ashwat, yeah.
you know,
Man's search for
man's search
meaning
for
of life.
meaning. Yeah, exactly. And I think that that is true no matter what culture you're in, no matter what background you've had. My past is what it is. Your past is what it is. Somebody listening, your past has had the challenges and the victories that you've had. Everybody has something somewhere in the story, but we get to choose our response to it.
That reminds me, Steve Jobs, he had mentioned is that in the hindsight, when you look at the dots that connects you, you would not realize that how far you have come or what those thoughts meant. But then there are some people who prefer being in that dot itself, the victim mentality, the whatever the mentalities is that okay, I'm comfortable, I'm not growing, but I'm comfortable in this. I'm
Mhm.
I'm hurting, but I'm comfortable in this. It's only when we say, okay, let me, let me, let me. Uh, so, Jenny, the question, what I would ask is that with so much, and again, thanks, I can literally feel the passion and the energy coming through the screen. What are the programs that you are now working on? Is it only the book that you're focusing, or is there just that you're going around giving the keynotes? Are there any activities or elements that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I have a book coming out, as you mentioned. So my book is called Make Work Not Suck,
Hmm.
a leader's guide for teams that thrive. And we're looking at probably this fall for the release. So I'll update you on that as I know more. And I'm also going to, as you're doing as well, I'm going to launch a podcast that goes along with that.
Hmm.
I am going to zoom out a bit on the topic. So my second book that'll come out in a couple of years is called Make Life Not Suck. So the Make Work Not Suck is specifically about work and how we show up as professionals in the workplace as leaders. The second one, and this is going to be also the title of the podcast, Make Life Not Suck, because we can talk about work because we spend about a third of our life at work. But the focus of the podcast is going to be everything under the sun that has to do with our growth. So, and when we're growing and evolving, life doesn't suck. We can go through hard times, but life won't suck. It'll be hard, but it doesn't have to suck. So the podcast is called Make Life Not Suck, and I will have experts and comedians and artists and entertainers and fellow keynote speakers and everybody you can think of. So entrepreneurs, everything. So that'll be probably launching. I think this summer I'm gonna get that off the ground prior to the book. And outside of that, I'm traveling around. I do a bit of stand up. I do mostly keynotes, talks, but I can let you know when I'm touring around, and hopefully I'll get to maybe shake hands with one of your audience members somewhere along the line.
For sure. Actually, beautiful. Thank you so very much. So, I mean, I sincerely hope that uh, it, I mean, successes as you walk. But when you mention about life and work, as a coach, do have my programs wherein I start off by saying work life is a misnomer. There is life and then there is work. But we humans, due to the societal and what is required, we have made work as our identity,
Mm,
our focus. And that, unfortunately, for millions, has become work has become life,
hmm.
wherein we forget that life is for living, not just existing at your work.
Yeah.
Before I can just be mindful of the time, is there, I mean, you have given amazing nuggets. And guys, I sincerely hope you have listened to this plant till here. Is there something, few key takeaways that you would like the audience or the listener to listen to, that you would like to glean off?
Oh, well, thanks. I honestly, I think if there's one thing that I could leave with anybody, it is to really find your way to, being present and in the moment in your life, even if it's hard, and find the nugget, find the lesson, find the whether that lesson is just I'm strong enough to do this. Like I was saying about my time when I was 18 years old on the other side of the world all by myself, and I went through some hard things, but I got through them, and the lesson was I can do hard things. Glennon Doyle talks about that all the
But yes,
time on her podcast, which is a wonderful podcast. We can do hard things. But maybe that's the only lesson for you here. I would offer up to then learn that lesson, right? Get that and walk away from this hard time or this challenging time with something that you've taken away that improves you, that grows you, because that is the only thing that we can do. Mel Robbins talks about this, how there's nobody coming for you. There's nobody coming to save you. So you can do this. And if you are going through a difficult time, that's what I would offer, is find the lesson and find the strength and take one more step forward.
beautiful, beautiful. Uh, Jenny, over here, sorry, I was looking at that because I'm a right-sided thinker, so I tend to look on the left side. Or if there's something which comes up, is that there are times wherein, yes, if there are hard things, at times it is just about you to experience. When you were growing up, you never had to fight against it. You couldn't fight against it. You were required where you were required. If your dad told you to come over there, you went over there. If your mom wanted you to be over here, you went over there. But those have allowed you with experience to become who you are. So sometimes life does throw you curveballs. All you have to do is experience, learn, grow.
Yes.
And so, with this, I would conclude today's session. It was an amazing journey. On a very selfish way, I can say that for me, I don't know if who else will be listening, but for me, it has been an amazing time and growth. Thank you so very much for your space and time.